So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope everyone is well. I am going live this evening. I'm a little bit early, but hey ho, that's just fine. We will wait for a few people to join us. I know the group's had a limited number as of live so far because of the holidays, but the schedule for the next few next week looks rather full. So let me see where we're up to. There we are. Excellent. So we've got some people coming in to join me now, which is lovely. Let's put that messy heat gun out of the way for the time being and just wait a little bit longer for a couple more people to join us, and then we will have some fun this evening with a bit of luck. Now then, why is it I always forget to plug one thing in? There we are. Let's just stick that onto there. Cool. So we have some bits and pieces to do and to show, and some fun to be had. There we are. And I have to, oh dear, look at that mess. Let me just give that a clean. Hi Sharon, hi Charmaine, thank you for joining us this evening. Hey. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, mucky match. That's because I've been on full show prep mode, but I'll forget that one for the moment. Let's just, there we are. Excellent. It is indeed a happy new year. So I have a range of different things here, and we're going to use some of the products that I have coming up to air at some stage in the next few months. So so one of the things that I have got, partly because Create and Craft asked me to do it, is some of the Stamperia clear die cuts. I suspect they have them that they want to clear, and that also might be to everyone's advantages. And you think, really? What on earth am I going to use a clear die cut for? I mean, the obvious is to layer on top of papers and you can see through. However, one of the products that I am going to be having on the show is deluxe paste, and these are metallic paste. They will stick to metal, they will stick to glass without needing to prime it, and whilst you can scratch them off acetate if you get your fingers underneath it, it's quite difficult to shift. And I know I'm going to leave these with the surface that I've got coloured underneath, so not actually gettable for scratching anyway. So I'm just going to mix. Now these come in lots of different colours. I'm using one called Truffle there, which is a beautiful bronzy metallic. I'm going to mix them up, so excuse me for mixing my colours on the same brush, but hey ho, they are my pots of paint. And I'm also going to use some of the emerald, because that's what I did on the others and it sort of worked. So there we are, and then they can sit off to the side. And the reason I'm doing them first is that because they're on acetate, you really can't take a heat gun to them, because guess what, it's not surprisingly, they will bubble up. So the next thing, so I like having these products because they are uber versatile. So there I've used them to colour acrylic. As I say, they work on glass and they will work on metal. I have an impression mould here. The very thick ones it will work with. I'm not going to say it won't. But literally just fill your mould. I'm not going to fill the whole of this one because clearly we might be here till the cows come home. You want a good layer and what goes in first will be the colour that's seen on the when you pull it out, and they take a good 24 hours to dry them like this. So yeah, don't be surprised if it's taking you a while, but you can then just mix your colours. As I say, the bit that's on first will be the bit that is shown, but you can use it to fill in gaps and areas. I'm just going to do a multicoloured one. I've got some plans for this. It won't be going to waste, so don't worry about that. And I'm just using paste that I've got open while I do this. Hello Philip, thank you for joining us. Good evening Julia, I trust that you are well. And as I say, I think these must be in a gel medium type base, because they do take a while to, as I say, to dry. But you get the idea that you can then have a multicoloured mould, and I can fill that up at leisure off air. And then you just need to leave that, as I say, for a good 24 hours or so to dry. I stick mine on the top of a radiator, but you know, obviously you do what is right for you. And then I have some moulds here that we're going to decorate in some slightly different ways, so that these pastes are pastes, so that you can use them through any of your moulds, but they also work beautifully as a paint. So I think we're just going to add some paint to some of these. So that's glass, plastic, metal, impression moulds for texture, backs of acrylics, stenciling and painting. I reckon that makes it an uber useful, versatile product to have in your stash. The colours are all, you know, sort of, there's bronze, truffle, anthracite, which is a blacky silver, champagne, which is the nearest to gold. It's a soft gold, it has to be said. Turquoise, emerald, rose gold. I think I've probably covered it all there, but I might not have done, so there we are. But you can see just how easy. Now, as a paint, when you feel it when it's dry, it does have a grittiness to it. So just be aware of that. And I think that's the grittiness in it is actually what allows it to stick to lots of mediums. And so you can paint it directly onto glass, leave it to properly dry. But you know, and then it's. I mean, I'm sure if you really went for it, you could scratch it off. But actually, it's pretty. It's pretty resilient to scratching. And I am in love with these. So I think that they are. I mean, I've had mine in my stash for a while, but I really do love them. So let me just give this a good cover, and then that can sit over there. We will come back to that paste in a minute for something different, but I don't want to add it at the moment. Otherwise we're going to get an icky sticky mess long term. So let me give me a sticky messy mix and then we're mixing it up, and I'm going to do some rust as well. So let me just grab some rust bits. I've got the big pots, but you can buy these all together as a set to make life easier, and we are, I'm afraid, going to have a little bit of drying in between some of these. So my approach has always been to, let's grab something that we can work on. There we are. So we've not got too much of a mess underneath here long term. Shovel that out the way, shovel that one off out the way. Excellent. So I've got lots of these pre-prepared, but I'm going to need these. So I always start out with my dark colour. These have just been painted with some of the black primer paste from Pentart, and as you can see, I am not paying the greatest amount of attention to where I'm putting these. I do want a good layer of the dark brown, but it's not going to be all visible. You don't need to cover the whole thing. So that is earthy brown. It comes in a set with all of these colours in it. So yeah, this is reddish brown, surprisingly. There we are. So we'll add some of this and layer some of it up, and that's the second dominant colour in rust. So we'll make sure we've got a goodly covering of that. And as you see, we're not using vast quantities of any of these paints. There we are. There we are. So that's that one. We might add a little bit of, this is fine powder, and it really is very fine, and it will thicken lots of mediums, but it doesn't go smooth. It will always be slightly textured. So this one is called red clay, so it's a bit like a terracotta colour. There we are. Let's just pick up some of that. So we'll have little bits of that, and we can go back and forth between our colours. And because I'm blending on slightly wet paint, actually it's quite helpful, because I will mix my colours up as I go, and if I think I've got too much of one, I can go back and add some of the other. And then of course we all know that rust has a little bit of a yellow tint, so let me just add a little bit of the yellow ochre that again comes in the set. And I literally tend to well, I just mess about really until I like the effect I've got, because you'll never get any two exactly the same, and I think I've managed to get rid of most of that. So let's just, there we are. Possibly very rusty, but hey ho, we'll go with that. There we are. So one rust effect onto those. As I have got some pieces pre-prepared to make life easier for me, but I'm going to give these a little bit of a dry, because I actually now need all of this lot to be dried. So let me see. Hi Sylvia, thank you for joining us. Said hello to Sharon, so that's always good. Hi Sarah Lou, hi Julie, good evening Faith, hello Alison. Hi Nikki, hi Kate, thank you for joining us. Lynette, thank you. Good evening Debbie, it's nice to see you. Hi Elaine, thank you. I do trust that everyone has had a good New Year, a good Christmas. Unfortunately, I know several of my friends have been pretty poorly, so that's never good, is it, in amongst it all. Good evening, Roberta. I hope the Emerald Isle is pleasant. It's never quite guaranteed, is it? I did have some waxes on my table, so alright, I do have some waxes, that's always good. Shall we go copper or shall we go brass? Yeah, I think we might go brass. And I'm using an antiquing paste, but that's because that's what I did on the others, and it will act and it will set permanently. So let me just give that a reasonable dry whilst we're waiting for this lot to settle down. I think there's still some of the depths of this mould will still be a little bit, wet. So whilst that continues to boodle around, so I'm just going to add a little bit of wax now, because metal, metal, even if it's rusty, does have some. And where I've put the texture in, you'll see that I'm getting little bits that are not completely smooth, and that is literally, so I'm not covering my whole piece with my paste. I'm just managing to pick up the texture created with the powder that I put in one of those layers, so it just makes it all together a little bit of a more interesting effect than just having just putting a straight wax on it. And the texture from the powder, and you look at it and you think, really, do I really need that? Actually does make a huge difference overall. So let me just pop that over there, just pop that out of harm's way, and we'll clean up the mucky mitts again. And I'm afraid that's one of the perils, isn't it, of, I think that is probably now dry. So I've now got one of my go-to mediums, which is the antiquing gel, and this one is in patina green, and I'm really, these are technique, I don't know about you, but I think sometimes we can look at some of the beautiful moulds that are on the market and think, I'm never ever going to be able to paint in all of that detail. Well, firstly, if you set your mind to it and get small brushes, you will get there. It does take a bit of practice. My lovely son, who is dyspraxic, can manage to paint Warhammer World models. It has taken him a long time to get there, but it is. But you don't actually need to have great painting skills and a fine hand if you adopt this approach. So I've covered my base of that with my antiquing gel, and now I can take it back and I can leave it in the surfaces, but I will now have lots of detail showing through. So I'm going to just rub this literally off the top. You do need to make sure that you pick up clean bits of the... There we are. So I now have my mould two-toned, and that's absolutely fine. I can add a little bit of gold wax onto that again, as I want to, when that antiquing gel has died. So three products and a mould that has interest, without the need to painstakingly cover each area in a separate paint. So I hope that means that it is a useful activity. Happy New Year, Roberta. Hello, Helen. Hello, Apostolos. Your lovely wife's package or partner's package arrived with me safely a few days after Christmas, which is brilliant. So I've got some nice new rice papers to play with. So there we are. So I've just knocked that back, and I'm going to leave that to dry. Let me pop that into there, out of harm's way, and pop the lid back on top. Good evening, Lynn. Thank you for joining us this evening. I trust you had a good Christmas, and that you spent lovely time with your family. Good evening, Joan. Thank you for joining and watching. I trust that you're well. And that your family are well as well. So there we are. So let's just give this a little bit of let's dry, and then let's clear some of this stuff out of the way whilst the going is good. So I'm finished with the pots of paint for the moment. Hi, Lorraine. Good evening, Maxine. So there we are. I just need that to dry a bit better. I'm not going to because I want to add a little bit of wax over the top. I'm actually not too worried about it being completely dry. And this time I'm picking up gold metallic wax, and you can see I have a well used pot, and I'm very happy to get my fingers mucky and detailed. There we are. So we'll just add a little bit, gentle touch of the gold on top of that, just to add another layer of detail. And here I definitely don't want to add it over everything, but there we are. But I can pick up the top areas that I want to highlight. There we are. So a really simple way of just using your moulds for their shape and their detail without the requirement to spend ages painting. Quick and I think effective, particularly if you like the steampunk genre, and definitely better for lives than that. Good evening, Annie. I trust that you had a good New Year. And who got the coin from your cake in your New Year's celebratory cake? So I have some papers. Yeah, it's not useful for me to see me using papers. Now these come from the 8x8 paper pad from Sir Vagabond Aviator. Which I've just cut to size. I've taken my book box because this is what it is. I'm sure if you haven't got any, the branch will have them on a show at some stage in the not too distant future. Can I see my pokey tool? Answer, no. Well, let's just do what the sacrilegious sin then, and we'll chop that. Oh, that was 3D varnish. That wasn't what we needed to do there. Hey ho. Right, glue is what is required. Do we have any glue out? Well, we've got a manky bottle of glue, so that'll have to do, won't it? There we are. We'll just add a little bit of scribble of that. Yeah, Joan, I think everyone does struggle a bit at this time of the year, don't they, with quite knowing, particularly when we have a long bank holiday. So there we are. Let's just shuffle that so it's reasonably centralised in here. We'll wipe off the excess. Oh, she says, now then, they're making a mess and splurging it everywhere else. There we are. So as I say, these literally just come from the 8x8 Sir Vagabond in Japan papers. The 8x8 is a fantastic size for doing an exploding box, and you'll need the vast majority of a pack to do that. And then we've got them for and these are literally just the leftover pieces. Good evening, Louise. I hope you are okay this evening. So I'll literally pop those into there. I might, after the live, run an ink pad around the top of that, but I'm not overly fussed. I'm just going to add some bits and pieces so that can go slotted into there. Now I'll get the correct piece of this because I had some extra pieces. There we are. So this is literally a question of just measuring your paper and then trimming it to fit what you're wanting it to fit. The eagle eyes will have seen that I did put some black gesso into the edges, and that's purely to cover stuff. Everything. So in the UK, because the first was Sunday, which is classically considered a holiday, not that it ever was for doctors, right? We have had essentially an extended break this over today, so we'll have had shops closed. So I suspect that you've just adopted a UK habit, or maybe an American habit, dare I say. There we are. Let's just lift that up a little bit. Lift that up into there. And this book box has got a curved side, so I'm just going to have to squash that until it grabs. There we are. Now, whilst those are gluing down, we are going to take some more of our anthracite paint and use it as a paste. You'll see why I've done things in layers this way. So are you in Australia, Sharon? So we're just going to add we're going to have a decadent book box, and why not? This could be made by just gluing pages of a book together and then hollowing out a niche to put your embellishments into. Doesn't have to be that you have to buy an expensive, a set of bases to work with. Just as easily have there we are. Let's just cover that. Oh, I'm going to catch the edge of that paper at the same time, which is I could have inked it, but before I put them in, but that's working just fine for me. There we are. This of course is when you get sticky icky fingers, but hey ho, because you've got lots of surfaces to cover. But that will work quite nicely. Just cover up the edges. Doesn't matter if I go into it, but there we are. So and then I have set myself a challenge, because we're going to be doing some bits. So I've actually got my hot glue gun on. I wouldn't normally use a hot glue gun at this point, it has to be said. I would very much use gel medium, but given that I'm on a live, I am going to use that. So that can go there. I will be coming back to that. So let me just pop that into there and onto there. There dry, there dry, there dry. So let's just have, I've got a little strip of paper, again just a little, it's a little offcut, so use whichever side colourways you want. I prefer that, there's more of a contrast, but or maybe that. Let's go with the blue, in keeping with the bluey greens of that I've chosen. So I'm sort of mixing rust and patina, but in separate elements. And you might have noticed that I didn't actually put any patina on my rust, because naturally patina is not an effect that occurs on rust. So that's going to go there. That's going to go there. Right. And this is one of my acetate elements, so we're just going to shovel that underneath there. Now I know I can't actually take a heat gun to that because it's plastic, so it will warp. So bear with while we come up with a little solution for anchoring it in place. So we've got, hopefully that will then hold it in place. Now then, I do think I have some little grey board pieces, so that can tuck underneath there, and I think we might stick that there. All that there. That one can go there. I've got lots of these, so I can add to my heart's content as I want to. And I've literally treated these in exactly the same way as I did everything else. So there we are. There is the front of the inside of my book decorated. And now for the inside, we have here we are. We might grab some more bits. So I know I'm going to pop that there and that there, but I want to add these and layer them up. So I'm just going to put a good wash of hot glue in the centre of that, but mostly that's going to be covered, and that can go there. And now I have another one. And because I know sort of where I'm going, I can get this lot pretty covered along the way. There we are. So that can go up there. And that one can go down there. There we are. She says, with stringy bits everywhere. So that, my little crow is going to sit in there. I need to add a little bit more detail to here to make him stable. So I've got some more layered pieces. Now these are from an assorted number of different moulds. Some of them are from from Philibert, some of them are by Stamperia, and I'm sure Katie Sue will equally have the ones that will work. So let's just shuffle that lot there, and I need to add another piece there just to give me some stability for my crow, because if I don't add some stability for him, that will work. Now the next trick for stability is to use these pesky spacers that come in lots of our canvases. Let me just grab a pair of scissors that it's not going to matter if I cream cracker them, rather than my nice sewing ones, because I just want to add some bits to here, just again for support, and I'm clearly going to need more than just one piece, but and it looks like I'm going to need a third one. I have a book full of races. Okay, so the right one for the science, whole sizes from this party. Excellent. It's good, isn't it? If I explored and put my hair away from it, I can't wait to use the antique place. Thank you. It's so lovely when people support what we do, because without people buying from the TV, love it or hate it, I know it's not for everyone, ultimately Create and Craft is a business, and it'll shut if we don't do something, if we don't buy from it. So we've got choices in this world. We always have choices. There we are. So hopefully, as I say, I would normally use gel medium for that lot. So that is the inside, and my box will still close because I thought about it when I was layering these and knew that I could add that extra dimension. So let me tuck that out of the way. Out of there. Now I want my box to close, so I'm just going to take a little bit of hot glue. Thank you. It's not so, Denise. I craft professionally. I suppose I have to say that nowadays, don't I? Having been doing it on the telly for a year, but actually, there is nothing complicated or nothing very difficult about anything that I am sharing with you today. Because I think that's really important. It's all very well to do huge, great, big masterpieces that use 55,000 different products and cost you an arm and a leg to buy everything to make one project, and then not know what to do with them. Whereas I think that if we have simpler projects that can build with time, then we'll get them. Now, remember right at the beginning, I said that, let's get this up the right way, so that's the top, that's the bottom, so it's always helpful, isn't it? You can fill your impression moulds with your deluxe paste. So that's all I did. Now this one is really quite thick in areas, you know, probably 4, 5, 6 mils, and I have to say this one took a good 24 hours to dry, and I think I've put my gel medium. No, I haven't put my gel medium. Right. So all I did was let it dry, slowly peeled it out of my mould, and then used a knife to cut it to size to fit my box. And I'm using gel medium because the back of it is not exactly smooth, and that's fine. So I'm thinking that the gel medium will help grab and hold it in place. So let me just get it off. Now the matte gel medium from Pentart does not dry clear. It is an opaque medium, so you do need to, if you've got it on stuff where you don't want it, then just take a few seconds and lift it out of the way. It's all resolvable. You can always add some more paint or some wax over the top. So I think that, yes, that is now up the right way. There we are. I am going to find what I did with my gold wax, and I'm just going to add some little bits of wax to the tops of my mould. Did it come out perfectly? No, it didn't. But does it matter? I don't think so. You know, this is all about building texture and detail. And yes, it does take a little bit of time to set, but once it is set, you can leave them on the side and use them whenever. There we are. So that is the back done. There we are. Now then, the eagle eyes will have seen, and once I've done this, I won't be able to show you the rest of it very easily. We'll be wondering what else I'm going to do. So let me now take some of my scrubby brush again, because I can, and I'm now going to pounce this to get myself some texture, which is why I wasn't terribly worried about how well painted it was. And I could remember, I can put this on as a texture paste. It is a paste, so it doesn't actually matter if I have a great big clumps of it, and it will dry with the texture. Please note, I am only double dunking into my pot because there's very little left of it. I wouldn't necessarily do that. I use what on a card. No, you do. As Joan says, no. It's absolutely, once it's dry, it's dry. You do not need to set your any of the waxes at all. There we are. So we've now mixed those 3 colours back, and remember, those are the colours that I was using earlier on my other pieces. So let me take this and let me take that. Pop that out of the way. Pop that out of the way. Stick that in there. And let's give this a little bit of a dry. It doesn't take too long to dry, which is always a good thing. Sharon, I think Sharon will have bought the Pentart waxes, Lou. So if there are waxes that say that they're water-based, now that's an abuse of the term wax, because a wax is not water-based. They are thickened paste that you treat like a wax, and because they are water-based, then it, so I'm thinking of Inca Golds in particular. I'm sure Pinsler had an equivalent that they have. I think several of the other companies, I think Pink Ink have them. Yes, Annie, I did. Those are water-based, and if you wet those later, then they will lift off. There's no question about it. But if you have used a proper wax, like the ones from Pentart, or the wax is as opposed to the ombre patinas from Stamperia, then they are beeswax wax or petrochemical based proper waxes, and they will they are permanent once they're done, so you won't have a problem with those coming off. Annie, yes, I have used the deluxe paste. So I was explaining earlier that you can use the deluxe paste as a paint, as a for texture through an impression mould, through stencils as a stencil paste, and directly onto glass and onto acrylics and things. So they're a really uber versatile product. Now where's that 3D ball gone in for? Excuse me, that was not. That's clearly, it's got into my pot of matte medium. So I've now got the rose gold and the champagne through a different mould here. They are reasonably brittle when they're dry, but if you heat them up, actually they soften enough, minimising the breakages when you do it. So I'm using my hot glue and also the gel medium to sandwich my ribbon closures in place. So there we are. Let's just give that a good squash. There we are. And let's just add a little bit of wax over the top to bring out some of that detail. It's just a little bit pinker than I wanted. Now I could go and raid a bloomer-type wax, but I'm not going to. There we are. We'll just add some of that in places to there. And we'll clean that off. Hello Sabine, how are you? So there we are. We've got a cog. Okay. We're going to pop that onto there, that onto there. We've got a little word. And we've got we'll stick over there, I think. And we'll pop that one into there. So, and I could carry on. I could add some more bits if I want to. Then we might pop that under there, because I've got several of these already, lots of these pieces. There we are. And pop that under there. And as I can see through there, we might stick that into there. So there we are. Having sort of worked out vaguely where I'm going, let us just pop blob of gel medium onto that. Shovel that there. We'll stick that up there with the north vaguely pointing north, because why wouldn't you? I'll pop this piece there, and you can see how that you get the shininess of the clear pieces when we acetate, but we're also getting the texture from the deluxe paste underneath. I'm going to pop that onto there. She says getting sticky, mucky, icky fingers. There we are, that piece can go there. So we've got our cog, and remember, I know that a lot of the centre of that is going to be covered, so I can build that up with my wax. If you can, we'll just lift that up so we can see what we're doing. Pop that into place. We've got a nice big cog there. Yeah, why not? Why not? That will have to be some gel medium though, otherwise we'll have a disaster. So that can go on there. Hopefully that is now cooled down enough to sit on there without causing problems. Yuck. I will just clear up my mucky mess of the gel medium from there. Okay. Hopefully that's not going to move too much. So we can now add our little plate to the side of the box. Yuck. He says getting rid of more bits and pieces, so that can go under there, and that one can go there. So ladies and gentlemen, here is our little book box. So obviously it needs some of the white that's currently showing needs to dry, but we have the inside. So we've used the rust paint effect case, we've used deluxe paste to paint our resined bird, we've used antiquing gel, we've used clear die cuts with the deluxe paste to colour them, we've painted the box, and then we've used more of the same but with a textured piece for the surface, remembering to switch the pieces in as we go. So I hope that has been a useful exercise. I think, how long has that taken us? She says I can't see the clock on my cap on my so we started at 7. I know that I had done the prep, because clearly when you're using stuff that needs to sit and dry, you really do need to just to leave it that time to dry. But really, having set it to dry, actually once all the components were ready, it really hasn't taken any ridiculous amount of time. So that piece, I think, just now needs to sit. There we are. So I'm going to No, I'm going to leave that and see where that holds. It might not. We might have a little bit of fiddling to do with that one later on. But there we are. So under an hour we have a mixed media piece. Yes, I have done prep. Yes, I knew where I was going, but I think it's achievable if you just have a little bit of play with your mediums. So that's all for tonight, ladies. I wish you well. I hope that you can join the rest of the team who do the lives here over the rest of the year. I think we're back in force, and I look forward to seeing what everyone creates. So good night for now. Take care, and we'll meet on Facebook soon.